Byron York is one of my go-to guys. He's chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. And what he wrote this week about the Super Tuesday primaries, very encouraging because there's a lot of, as he put it, Trump GOP strength. Let's welcome on our guest line the one and only Byron York. Hey, Byron, great having you on the show. How you been, sir?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing well. Thanks very much.
Are you wearing a mask yet? Are you panicked yet about coronavirus?
Actually, I'm in a full body hazmat suit as we speak.
I don't blame you. I'm gonna try to figure out how to get the microphone up under my helmet so that my big, one of those big like undersea diving things. I'm gonna wear one of those. Well, you saw Matt Gaetz the other day. He wore one of the big gas masks on the floor of the House. What was that all about?
Well, the thing is, this is serious, and obviously it poses a real threat, especially to elderly Americans and those with underlying health conditions. All of that is really serious, and I think what the government is doing is reasonable and serious. I do think, and this is as predictable as the sun coming up, that it has been politicized a good bit, and that Trump has been criticized a lot for saying things that are entirely reasonable.
Right.
When he questioned the WHO death rate and said he thinks it's actually a good bit lower. I mean, he's basically saying what the experts have told him. So anyway, the politicization is unfortunate. I think the government's doing the right things, but we do live in a world in which people get on airplanes and travel from China to Italy to the United States, and things will spread under those conditions.
2,700 New Yorkers are right now self-quarantining because they've been to one of those hot spots. It's and as people are pointing out to me, the shelves are empty. You cannot find just wipes and handy wipes and Purell and hand sanitizers. They're gone. I mean, they're sold out.
Kind of stuff, this kind of stuff, and people are also buying all sorts of food to stay inside if they need to do that for quite a while. Look, it's easy to make fun of some of this stuff, but a lot of this will actually limit the spread or help limit the spread if people are washing their hands like crazy, and if they're trying to avoid touching their face, if they're trying to do these things, that will help. The idea of keeping the virus literally outside of the United States borders was impossible, but just because it's impossible doesn't mean you can't make it better, make the situation better, and doing all that stuff will help. So it's a good thing.
Nothing wrong with being proactive, Byron. That's for sure. I'm at a stage with Joe Biden, and I keep saying to people, this expectation that it's all over, that we know Biden is going to be the nominee. We'll see what happens in Michigan. I want to get your take on what you think will happen Tuesday in Michigan between Biden and Bernie. But I got to play this montage. I mean, I don't like to pile on, and I'm not trying to make fun of another human being, but you do. I think it's time that we can have a frank and open exchange, a dialogue about his mental acuity. Here's cut 17, a little montage. He was Barack Obama's vice president for 8 years, and the poor fellow seems to have a hard time remembering his name. Listen to this.
I'm the only guy that's beaten the NRA, and my state is a big gun-owning state because of hunting. I'm the only guy that's beaten them twice. I got assault weapons banned for 10 years. It had to be reauthorized because of hanging chads in Florida. The last president said, no, I'm not going to reauthorize it. Because they invaded another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. Right. He's saying that it was my boss, it was his fault. They're going to have a conversion of the road to Damascus. Because now you say, by the way, are you going to stick with the president on the following president, the last guy, on this issue? And just start naming them, whatever it is.
President last guy, because he can't remember. I mean, Byron, is it fair to say that this is a serious concern about former Vice President Biden?
Well, everybody in Washington who has dealt with Biden over the years, and that's a lot of people, believes that he has, the phrase that's used the most is lost a step. or maybe lost 2 steps. I have asked Democrats privately, do you feel that he has the stamina and is up to the rigors of a general election presidential campaign, which is very, very tough? And they're not sure. I mean, they'll say, I don't know. They certainly don't say yes. But look, this is what the party has chosen, or appears to have chosen. And I've been writing. You can go back and look at it. I've been writing for a long time that Sanders and Biden are too old to be president, and I included Bloomberg in that when he joined, because I mean they'll turn 80 very soon after taking the White House if they were elected. And you have to remember that President Trump is our oldest president ever. And he would be, and Biden would take office at the same age Trump would be if Trump served 8 years and left office. So this is, and presidents, it's implicit in the deal that the president is asking, or the candidate is asking, to serve 8 years as president. And, pushing 90 is absolutely uncharted territory in American politics. And yet this is what, the Democratic Party did. Nobody cheated. This was a primary campaign, and they had a ton of candidates, and they all fell aside.
I mean, and the party of diversity now has 2 elderly white guys, it looks like, that are going to try to challenge, one of whom is going to challenge President Trump. I mean, I don't know how the Democrat Party, and you saw the press conference with Elizabeth Warren. I mean, very emotional yesterday after she dropped out, and she seems very bitter about what she seems to imply is the sexism that she experienced as a presidential candidate.
I have to say, I just don't buy it. Looking at the 2016 Republican primaries, how many were there? Like 16 of them or 17? Candidates, and man, it got rough, really rough. It was male on male violence, but the fact is, these things get rough. I think Newt Gingrich compared candidate Trump to the Revenant bear at one point. You just don't get close to him. And it's a very rough process. And Elizabeth Warren, she had her moment at the top. She was, the flavor of the month for less than a month, I guess. And then she began to fade, which is the trajectory you see in all losing candidacies that ever, caught fire at all. A lot of them just never get going at all. So it's just, I think I didn't really pay a lot of attention to her complaints because, look, she's upset. She's unhappy. She's been doing this for more than a year. She really thought she had a chance at one point, and then it didn't work out. And you got to be disappointed with that. And she's obviously disappointed.
Really hate it for her. Byron York, our guest, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. The conventional wisdom is that Biden could slam the door on Bernie Sanders Tuesday in Michigan, that he could put him away. If he wins Michigan, it's going to be really hard for Bernie Sanders to have a path to the nomination. What's your take on Tuesday and Bernie's chances? Is that thinking correct, or do you disagree with that somewhat?
Well, I pretty much agree with that. I mean, Sanders won Michigan in 2016.
Right.
It's the type of place he should do well. For example, nobody's saying Bernie should win Mississippi because Mississippi seems to fit into that category of states like South Carolina and Alabama.
Right.
And
but if he pulls off a victory, if he gets the most delegates in Michigan, if he does well in Michigan, he's still alive?
Yeah, you have to remember, by the way, that there's still a bunch of delegates that have not been apportioned or decided in California.
Exactly.
Because the Democratic Party has such a complex way to apportion them proportionally based on statewide results plus congressional district results. So, the Biden has clearly got a delegate lead, and because of the Democratic system, even a relatively small delegate lead can be hard to overcome. But it might not be that big that Bernie would not still be alive if he wins Michigan, in a big way. I mean, there's other states. There's Missouri, there's Mississippi, there's the Dakotas, and there's something else next Tuesday. So there's still a fair amount of states. The bigger question to me is you have to remember a week ago, if we had this conversation 1 week ago, Klobuchar, Buttigieg, Warren, and Bloomberg were still in the race. Right. Some of us were still talking about it being kind of wide open. And then all of a sudden, wham, South Carolina happens, and then Super Tuesday happens. And I think what I'm wondering about is, will Democrats have a Biden hangover at some point? Will they think, wow, I kind of wrote this guy off. He was kind of this old guy, and he just wasn't the future, and he wasn't going to be the candidate, and it was going to be Bernie's revolution. And then, wham, we had this wild weekend, and I ended up married to him. I woke up, and we were married.
Right. What am I doing? What am I doing
so
here? Poor guy doesn't. Poor guy. I'm married to a guy who doesn't know what day it is.
Are they going to have that thought process, or are they just going to go all in on Biden? I have no idea what they're going to do, but I do. The decision to rush to Biden was so swift. I think it just invites the kind of rethinking that humans normally do when they've made a really fast decision.
No question. And as President Trump pointed out last night in that Fox News town hall, his base is way more enthusiastic for him than certainly a Biden base or even the Bernie base. Bernie has a passionate support, but it's not as big as the Trump base, it seems to me. And in your analysis, we've posted it at MikeOnline.com. How the primaries, the Democrat Super Tuesday made all the news with the presidential race, but many states had Republican primaries too, and it showed that the Trump GOP strength is really profound, Byron.
He really does. By the way, I thought the president was very impressive in that town hall with Brett Baer and Martha McCallum last night. He was loose. He obviously defended everything his administration did, but was really presented a very personable side to the public, a very different Trump than the rally Trump, which is an amazing show.
But it wasn't that different. I would respectfully disagree. That's kind of him, isn't it? He usually is self-deprecating. He's funny. The rallies have a more officious kind of a tone to it. And you're right, this was more casual, but that's who he is.
Yeah, it is. And the casual part, people like the casual part when they get to see it. So on the Republican primaries, you're right. The Democratic primaries on Super Tuesday, of course, they made all the news. That's a hotly contested race. But there were Republican primaries. And if you remember 6 months ago, there was talk that, primary challengers to President Trump might do great damage to his candidacy, and presidents who have been primaried do not go on to get reelected. There was a lot of talk about that. And basically, Trump just swept all that away. Yeah. By the way, Trump won the Texas primary with 94.1% of the Republican vote. In 2004, which was the last time an incumbent Republican president was running for reelection, George W. Bush, who just happened to be a former Texas governor,
right,
won the Texas primary with 92.5% of the vote, and Trump gets 94.1% of the vote.
That's amazing. That's amazing. The Texas,
strong.
That's strong. Think about that, because you're right. When you go apples to apples, and Bush in Texas got less of a percentage than Trump, there's something going on, Byron. And then, of course, you saw the news today. The U.S. created 273,000 new jobs in February. They had predicted about 165,000. This keeps happening. I don't know how you stop that freight train in November.
Two things: more jobs and higher wages as well.
Yep. That's right. Very important.
Over Trump's 3 years in office, and that's something. Obviously, a lot of the press reports and some speeches focus on more jobs, creating jobs, putting people to work. That's extremely important. But also, the ones who are at work are seeing increases in their paycheck, and that's a big, big thing.
Big deal. Big deal. So are you. Byron York, have a happy weekend. Put your mask on, wash your hands, and keep fighting. Great having you on the program. Thank you, Byron. Byron York, Washington Examiner, great guy. Again, one of our go-to guys here in the ReliefFactor.com studios.